Welcome. Today's project's all about depersonalization and how you can tell you are actually suffering from depersonalization and how can we lessen depersonalization so that we can start to feel better on a daily basis. That's the goal. The goal is to move out of this chaotic state into a more neutral, calm, relaxed state. But like my old self, the Brad that was suffering through depersonalization, I didn't know the techniques. I didn't know how to get myself out of depersonalization because it was so overwhelming. And so today's goal is for me to give you the tools on how you can do just that. Okay. So what is depersonalization? Depersonalization is when your anxiety response is continuously active for hours, days, weeks, months, years. Depersonalization follows, right? And depersonalization is there when our fear response is active, when that is there continuously throughout the days, right? The amygdala, when this part of our brain that initiates the fight, flight, or freeze response, when that is continuously active, it takes over all other brain processes. It takes over everything. So that's why we feel like we're in the driver's seat when we have high anxiety. That's why we can't seem to control our thoughts, our emotions, our actions, and we feel automated. And this is one of the biggest symptoms of depersonalization, feeling automated. And that's why it's when the amygdala is active, it takes over all other brain processes because it's designed to keep us alive in times of danger, when we perceive something in our environment as a threat. And that's what keeps us alive, is when that amygdala is working properly. Okay? So you can also think of it as a deer in the headlights. When you see a deer just freeze on the highway before the car is going to hit it, that's its fear response. That's when I was going through depersonalization, I felt like a deer in the headlights, just frozen and bewildered and eyes wide. Or like when you watch a war movie like Saving Private Ryan, where the guys on the beach, right? At D-Day, confused and bewildered. He's in a traumatic state. He's like fumbling around. He's looking at all these dead people and he's just completely shocked. That's similar to what depersonalization is. It's actually depersonalization, but maybe not to as such a dramatic and a high degree as that, right? It's the same circuitry. It's the same emotions, the same feelings. So let's talk about the signs. The signs you may have that determine whether you experience depersonalization, okay? So the first sign is you feel disconnected from the outside world. You feel disconnected from yourself. And I like to refer to this as uh, being a video game character, being a video game character who is being controlled by someone else, or being a puppet, not really not you don't feel like you have control. You feel like something else is controlling you, and that's going back to the amygdala, right? The amygdala took over. It's not really much of you consciously controlling yourself. It's more of your fear response now is in charge of you. Okay? That's really important to understand. Okay? So for me, I found it really difficult to control my mind. I found it difficult to control my actions and my words, right? I had trouble communicating to other people. I felt automated. I felt like the words coming out weren't really the truth. It was just coming from somewhere. And I was confused by that. I didn't know where they were coming from. And so I'll give you an example of when I was working in retail, when I was going through this depersonalization in my past. So I would be walking around the store and I would be like looking at the ground. I would have shallow depth of field. I would have like blurry vision. I would be walking around, but I felt like I was losing my balance. It felt like the world was tilting just like that. And I couldn't get my balance. And I didn't want to talk to people because I felt like I didn't know what to say. I was confused. I felt shameful. I felt bewildered and overwhelmed. So I would avoid talking to people and customers. But you can't really avoid that when you're at work, right? So when I would talk to people, sometimes I would talk to them and I would give them short answers so I could just leave the conversation. And I felt like I would be, and I was actually sweating when I was talking to them because I felt embarrassed because I felt like they knew exactly, I felt like they thought I was weird because of I was sweating. I was acting weird. I thought I was always acting weird. And so that's depersonalization. And so I had all of these symptoms, and this is because when your sympathetic nervous system, your fear response is continuously active, you just don't feel like you're in control. You don't feel like yourself, right? Your body's telling you that there's this trauma that needs to be dealt with. There's this issue, this underlying issue that needs to be resolved, right? And when a lot of people go through trauma, they experience depersonalization. It's so common. This is so common, right? So a lot of people come to me and talk about their symptoms, and I tell them, oh, you have depersonalization. And it's so common when we go through trauma, when we go through PTSD, when we go through heightened anxiety, right? So remember that it's common, that you're not alone, okay? So another common sign of depersonalization is feeling emotionally emotionally confused, that you can't seem to get a grip on how you're feeling. You feel, when I was working at that retail job and going through depersonalization every day, I felt emotionally confused. I felt overwhelmed by how I was feeling. And this snowballs your anxiety. It makes things worse. And it doesn't seem to go away when we ruminate over our symptoms, because it then becomes a paradox. When we stress about how we're feeling, that stress continues the cycle of those symptoms of how we're feeling. So it's not really working out the best way if we're stressing about our symptoms. And we're not going to get rid of depersonalization if we continue to interpret our sensations as being something catastrophic, as being something life-threatening. Okay, so that's how I was interpreting my depersonalization. I felt like these symptoms, this shallow depth of field, this dizziness, this lightheadedness, these heart palpitations, all of these things, I felt like though it was a sign that I was unhealthy. So I kept ruminating over it, okay? So let's get into ways we can lessen depersonalization. Like I said before, depersonalization occurs when our fear response is active, also known as the sympathetic nervous system. Okay? And we must activate the opposite system, the parasympathetic nervous system, instead. This is our rest and digest system. This is when we feel relaxed, calm, in the moment, grounded. That's when our parasympathetic nervous system is active. We feel all of those things. We feel like everything is in alignment. So how do we activate the parasympathetic nervous system? Well, reducing your speed, slowing down. I always did things at a quick pace. I ran out of the house quickly, forgetting my wallet, my phone, and I would do things. I would wash the dishes fast. I would clean up fast. I would get to my car fast, right? And I would brush my teeth fast. I would do everything fast. And so this was causing my sympathetic nervous system to be continuously active. So when you slow down, you start to activate your parasympathetic nervous system instead, okay? So reducing your speed, also reducing the tasks you have throughout the day. If you have a lot of things to do, that's going to cause a lot of stress. And with stress is the activation of your sympathetic nervous system, which is going to keep your depersonalization alive. So reducing your workload throughout the day helps reduce that system, okay? Also, taking a bath, going out for a nice walk, getting some exercise, and getting enough sleep. Getting a proper 8-hour sleep is so important for reducing that system and activating your parasympathetic nervous system instead. So engage in a lot of calming activities because your body's working overtime, triple time. My anxiety systems in the past were active for months, years. Think about all of that fuel, all of those resources being burned up continuously. All of my resources were just being excreted, right? It was exhausting. I felt emotionally exhausted all the time. And that didn't help, right? It didn't help me, it didn't help my traumas. It didn't help my depersonalization. I was in a constant state of anxiety, and I felt like a deer in the headlights every day. I felt like I was on D-Day on the beach with bullets flying over my head, and I felt like I was in a traumatic state every day. So I hope this video has helped you recognize the signs of depersonalization, and I hope it helped you gain more knowledge about what you can do to decrease this depersonalization and activate your rest and digest system instead. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, do not let anxiety define who you are. I will see you on the next video. Bye for now. Remember to hit that subscribe button and that bell so that whenever a new video of mine appears, you will be the first to know. Namaste.